So what is gracing the skies of November of 2024? Well, we have a Thanksgiving feast of celestial targets, a couple occultations, meteor shower, and a veritable parade of planets. Hi everybody, I'm Rob, your last minute astronomer, bringing astronomy to normies and nerds with little time to spare. We'll start by talking about November's big events, then highlight the naked eye planets, and then finish up with the lunar phases, all so that you can plan ahead better than me. So November starts with the 3rd being daylight savings time ending, or daylight saving time ending, whichever it is, doesn't matter. But the next big thing really happens on the 10th, and this is the occultation of Saturn if you live in the right spot, okay? Now, in order to actually see the moon cover up Saturn, you do have to live in about southern Florida, the Yucatan Peninsula, or northern South America. Okay, so most of the US isn't going to see this, but southern Florida will. But for the rest of us, now I'm around Philadelphia. So if we go ahead and take a look at what happens, now, first of all, Saturn is pretty darn close to the moon. This is closer than it usually is for a close encounter. And then as time goes by, the moon is going to pass right by it. Oh, look at that. It gets real close, within half a degree, like half of your pinky would fit in between Saturn and the moon. And that's what I'm going to see. Now, if you're further south, it'll be closer. If you're further north, it's going to be further apart, but they are going to be super close. I would say this is a good time to get a really good zoom telescopic lens. Get your telescope out, get a really good lens, telephoto lens. That's what I was looking for. And maybe you can catch both of them at the same time. So very, very cool occultation of Saturn on the 10th. Okay. Now, the next big thing that's going on is from the 17th to the 18th. And I don't really have much to show you up here because it is a meteor shower. And a meteor shower kind of takes place across the entire sky. But what I can do is I can show you the radiant. Now, the radiant is that area of the sky where the meteors appear to be coming from, because during these showers, they appear to be coming from one spot. And that one spot is in Leo right here, right? So they should be appearing to come from Leo. So they all sort of go out in a radial pattern from there. Now, this year's not going to be that great. Why? Well, take a look. You've got an almost just past full moon up there. So that's going to drown out some of the smaller, dimmer ones. Plus, this is a weaker shower, only about 10 to 15 meteors per hour. So I don't know, but don't give up, okay? And the reason I say don't give up is because you never know when a bright one might just pass. And you never know when you might have, I don't know, a big fireball or a big shower that just happens, right? Now, my typical advice is to dedicate 20 to 30 minutes at least of just going outside and looking at the sky. Don't have your phone out, but go ahead, put some earbuds in. Get your favorite podcast going. Maybe mine, maybe Cosmos Safari. I don't know, whatever you want to listen to. And maybe Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. And put that on and just go out there and sit, let your eyes dark adapt, so that you can see more of them, all right? Don't look at the moon. That's going to be too bright as well. I also recommend a hammock or one of those, quote, anti-gravity chairs, and just look at the whole sky in general, but look generally toward Leo. I would face my body in that direction or straight up. So, and lastly, check the weather first before you go out. You just never know. And also dress more warmly than you think you should, because if you're sitting out there, man, does it get cold real quick, especially if you're not moving around. Okay? All right. So then the second to last thing here is on the 27th, and that is the second occultation, and that is an occultation of Spica. Okay. So what we got to do is we got to go toward the morning. You'll see the moon. Let me zoom in here. Okay. Now the moon is a very thin crescent, so it's going to be low in the sky, and it's going to get real close to Spica, right? And in fact, from my perspective here, right around 5:35 a.m. is when the moon, that crescent, is going to cover up the star Spica. It's just going to wink out of existence. Well, not really, but from our sight. And then about an hour later at 6:49, which looks like it's going to be dawn. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it pop back out, but maybe if you are further west in the United States, you should be able to see this actually happen. So the further west you are, the later this should look for you. But this is going to be really nice. You can click on the link that I put in the show notes, because that'll take you to a site that'll give you the data for all kinds of different places over the world. Okay? So that's second occultation. I think there's a third one out there, but I forget what it is. And then lastly, my favorite part is the more amateur astronomy part of this, which is, what about Thanksgiving, right? Thanksgiving, at least for the US, is on the 28th, and we have a wonderful sky to take a look at. We've got a feast. And so let's go to sunset, right? Which is about 4:40 p.m. And already you can see that there's plenty out there. Now, I'm going to ignore Mercury just because it's kind of dim and it's pretty darn close to the sun. So I'm going to move just forward ahead a little bit. In fact, let's go to like 5:30, okay? And at 5:30, you look at the sky and you can see already you've got Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter, right? Venus is going to be super easy to find. It's over there in the southwest, super bright, first bright thing you're going to see. And if you're extra good, maybe you have your telescope out as well. If you zoom in on Venus, okay, you can actually find it in its gibbous phase, right? Now, it's not going to look that detailed in the telescope, but let's move out. That's kind of what it looks like. It's going to look a little oblong. It's not going to be a perfect sphere or perfect circle, right? So that's Venus out there, just gorgeous. And it looks like it sets, hey, let's take a look. It sets at 7:34, okay? Now, what else is out there? Of course, we have Saturn. Now, Saturn is out there in the south area, about 30, 40 degrees up. And if you take your telescope and take a look in on Saturn, you can see lots of good stuff. You can see, well, you won't see this. Looks like Tethys has a shadow going across. I doubt you'll be able to see that. In fact, last time I took my telescope out, Saturn kind of looked more like that, but the rings were pretty much edge on, but you could tell that it was Saturn. You could see the moons, especially Titan, right around it as well. So that is an awesome one to look at, and mess around with your eyepieces. See which ones give you the best view. Then you also have Jupiter. Now, it's probably a good idea to let it rise up a little bit, like maybe wait until, let's say, 8 o'clock or something, okay, when it's a little bit higher. And Jupiter's going to look awesome. Now, the coolest part about looking at Jupiter on Thanksgiving night is Europa is going to cast a shadow on Jupiter for a certain amount of time. In fact, I have it as 7:40. So let me rewind. There we go. So right around 7:40, and for about 2 hours and 20 minutes, there will be a shadow, a literal solar eclipse happening on Jupiter that we can see from Earth's perspective. And it's going to end right around 10 p.m. So I'd say get out there anytime between 7:40 and 10 p.m. Look at Jupiter, look at how awesome it is, but then also see that shadow that's going on there as well. Now, if we zoom back out again, if you're really patient, you can wait for Mars to rise. In fact, it looks like it's rising at about 8:46. But Mars is not the best one to look at with the telescope. I believe it's going to come to opposition sometime in the next couple months. I'll have to look that up for you guys. But right now, it's not going to be that big or that detailed, but it will be there. You can see it in Cancer. Cancer is a tough constellation to find, so Mars might make it a little bit easier. Okay. And of course, it's going to march across the sky throughout the night. And of course, if you're taking your family out to take a look at stuff, I would highly recommend checking out the Andromeda Galaxy. Okay. I would recommend going to Orion and looking at the Orion Nebula down here, and the Pleiades. They're just awesome winter sky targets. I'm sure you have your favorites as well. Go ahead and show them those faint little fuzzies and tell them a little bit about it. Tell them how far away it is. Tell them how wide it is, how many light years, and how light is the fastest thing, just the fastest thing. And, it could go around the Earth 7 times in 1 second. All kinds of really cool stuff there. So I hope that you get out there, enjoy Thanksgiving, maybe even catch up with those occultations as well. So with those events being done, let's talk about the planets. All right, let's start off with the sunset planets. We've got Venus and Saturn. Yeah, I see Mercury down there. It's not really making that good of an appearance this month. It's not going to be that far from the sun, so I wouldn't worry about that. But Venus is going to look, as usual, very awesome. It's between 15 and about 20 degrees above the horizon around sunset. And in the beginning of the month, most of the month, it's setting between 7:30 and 8 p.m. So it's actually up there a pretty good time. Go ahead, see if you can see its gibbous phase as well. But that's going to fade fairly quickly. But we also have Saturn up there in the southeast, in the south, and it's going to shine a little bit brighter than everything around it, but not too much. But it will be about 30 to 35 degrees above the southeastern horizon. So around sunset, those are the two that you can see. But let's talk about the middle of the night planets. So let's go a little bit later, zoom out a little bit more, and you'll see Jupiter. And if we go out even further, you'll see Mars. So right now we're in the middle of the month at about 9:48 p.m. Let's go over to 10. Okay. Right around 10 p.m. and you'll see Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars, right? Now, Saturn, like I said, it began in the southeast and moves west throughout the night. It sets in the west-southwest around 3 a.m. on November 1st. And by the end of the month, it's setting around midnight. So we're getting to the point where Saturn is not going to be visible as long as it used to be. Jupiter is kind of on the other side of the sky. It's in the east-northeast, rising around 8:30 p.m. in the beginning of the month and around 5 p.m. at the end of the month. So now we're getting into prime Jupiter looking time, all right? It's also going to be visible in the morning, but we'll get to that. Mars is a little further to the east, in the east-northeast, around 11 p.m. on November 1st is when it rises, 9 p.m. at the end of the month. And again, it moves west. In fact, throughout the month, let me fast forward a little bit here. Let me go back to November 1st. You'll see Jupiter is in Taurus and Mars is just right off of Gemini there. As the month goes by, Jupiter kind of hangs out in the same spot, but Mars gets closer and closer to Cancer. Okay? And then in the morning, in fact, let me fast forward us to sunrise. And normally I'd say look toward the east, but here you want to look toward the west for sunset, right? And you'll be looking and seeing if you can find Taurus. In fact, let me rewind a little bit. If you can still see Taurus, you can see Jupiter. If you look up above Gemini, you can find Mars. And those are your morning planets. So once again, Jupiter and Mars in the morning, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars throughout the night, and Saturn and Venus right after sunset. And as far as the moon goes, we got the new moon on the 1st, followed by a week of evening crescents until the 9th when we have the first quarter moon. Then we'll have a week of evening gibbous, and the full moon is on the 15th. After the 15th, we'll have a week of a waning gibbous moon, where it's mostly lit, but it rises later at night, until the 22nd, which is the last quarter moon, where the left half is lit up, and we can see it starting around midnight and into the morning. And after that, we'll have a week of morning crescents. And it looks like the new moon for December will be right around the 1st. So Beautiful skies for the first week and last week, and the full moon on the 15th. Now, there are some close encounters as usual, and the first one is with Venus. As you can see here on November 4th, after sunset in the southwest, you will see the moon, a very thin waxing crescent, and it's only below Venus by about 4 degrees. Super duper awesome. Starts off less than 15 degrees above the horizon. Definitely worth a good look. Now, if we zoom out, and you recall the moon passes across the sky, and it gets thicker and thicker. And so, boom, right there, Saturn. We already talked a bit about this occultation, but November 10th is when the moon is going to be really close to Saturn. So if you're having trouble finding Saturn, get out on November 10th. That'll be the day to check it out. And again, let's look across the sky. Let's go a little later at, oh, there's Jupiter. Let's see when the moon hits or passes by Jupiter. And oh, it looks like the 16th and the 17th, right? So it's just past full, and it'll be about 10 degrees above Jupiter on the 16th. And then on the 17th, it'll be about 10 degrees to the left of Jupiter. Okay? So again, if you're having trouble finding Jupiter, that's a good time to go out and find it. And now we need to go deeper into the night and go to the 24th. And let me head back. Let's see, the 21st. Okay. A little bit on 20th, but 21st, that's going to be when Mars and the moon are closest. Okay. And it looks like, well, let's see here. We've got an angular separation of about 5 degrees. So go out on the 21st, well, morning of the 21st, night of the 20th, and you should see Mars and the moon real close. So, with all of that being said, I hope that you guys have a wonderful month. If you find this monthly advance notice of the night sky to be helpful, please find Last Minute Astronomer on Patreon. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. So, until next month, I wish you very fruitful plans and clear skies. Music was produced by Deep Sky Dude and used with permission.